Will he remember you? That quiet question doesn't come in the noise. It comes in the night, when no one is watching, when the prayers feel unanswered, when the silence stretches longer than you thought it could. It's there in the hidden places of your heart that the whisper creeps in. Will he remember me? We all ask it, especially when we're grieving, waiting, or feeling forgotten by the world. It isn't rebellion. It isn't faithlessness. It's human. Deep down, we wonder if the God of galaxies truly sees the dust of us. Not the big, visible versions of us, but the us that's tired, aging, grieving, buried in disappointment or time. Spurgeon understood this fear. That's why in his sermon on the resurrection he wasn't just preaching doctrine, he was giving comfort. He knew what it felt like to bury someone. He knew the ache of final breaths and cold soil. And yet he stood boldly on this truth. God will remember, even the bones, even the dust. Psalm 34, verse 10 says that those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. That includes being remembered. That includes being raised. That includes being fully restored, not just in spirit but in body. And this is what we often miss in modern faith talk. God doesn't just care about your soul, he cares about your whole self. Your tears, your body, your hands that served in secret, your feet that walked his path when no one applauded, your back that bent beneath burdens no one else saw. Not one fiber of you is forgotten. The world discards what dies, but God preserves what he has redeemed. Spurgeon painted a breathtaking picture, a believer's body scattered by time, broken down by disease, lost to the soil, and yet not lost to God. He will call the molecules. He will gather the dust. He will rebuild what the world believed was gone, because his memory is not like ours. His promises don't fade. So if you've ever stood over a grave and wondered, will this be the end? If you've ever looked at your own weakness and thought, can he still see me? If you've ever whispered in prayer, Lord, don't forget me, this message is for you. He hasn't forgotten. He never will. When God says he will remember, he doesn't mean it like we do. We remember birthdays sometimes. Names barely, faces for a while, but our memories fade. Time wears them down. Even the most precious moments eventually soften at the edges, but not with God. God remembers with action. His memory is power. When he remembers, the earth moves, seas part, graves open, winds obey. To be remembered by God is not to be recalled, it is to be revived. That's why the resurrection isn't just a doctrine, it's a declaration. It says that not one cell of your being is overlooked, that your story, your body, is being written into something eternal. Spurgeon reminds us that the same Christ who rose with scars still visible will raise his people with glorified bodies. Not new ones pulled from thin air, but transformed ones, ours, refined, radiant, resurrected. That should mean something to those who suffer in the body, to the sick, the aging, the disfigured, the ones who feel forgotten because their flesh is failing. To them, resurrection isn't abstract, it's intimate. It means your aching knees will run again. Your tired eyes will see clearly. Your scarred skin will shine with eternal health. Not a version of you, fully alive, fully healed. So no, your body isn't disposable. It's not just a shell. It is sacred, it is seen, and it is not forgotten. Even now, as you walk through grief, as you age quietly, as you carry things alone, the promise stands. He remembers. And in the last day, his voice will echo over the dust of this world. He will speak and your body will respond. Molecules will obey. Bones will rise. And the very same hands that now hang low in sorrow will be lifted in glory. That's the kind of remembrance only God can do. So ask the question if you must, will he remember me? But let Scripture, let the Spirit, let the scars of Christ answer. Yes, every part of you. Forever. The world is full of noise that says you must be seen to matter, that your value is measured by visibility, by attention, recognition, applause. And if you're not being celebrated, then maybe you've been forgotten. Maybe you don't count anymore. Maybe you're invisible now. But heaven doesn't work that way. God does his best work in silence, in tombs, in wildernesses, in quiet hospital rooms and lonely kitchens and dark seasons where no one is watching, but he is. He doesn't forget the widow who prays in the dark. He doesn't overlook the man who serves faithfully with no spotlight. He doesn't miss the mother who labors in secret or the aging saint who can no longer rise from their bed, but still whispers his name. This is the God who counts tears, who stores them in a bottle, who numbers hairs and remembers dust. So if you think he won't remember you, consider again. Spurgeon said the grave is not God's blind spot. What we bury, he keeps count of. And when the final trumpet sounds, he won't summon strangers. He will call his own, by name, individually, personally. Not one soul raised in a faceless crowd, but a beloved son, a precious daughter brought to life again in fullness. That's what resurrection means. Not just life after death, but recognition. You won't be someone else in eternity. You'll be you, redeemed, glorified, whole. Not erased, restored. So no, God hasn't forgotten you in your pain. He hasn't overlooked you in your aging. He hasn't discarded you in your weakness. You may feel hidden now, but he knows where you are. And more than that, he knows where every part of you will be when he says, "Rise." So if you've ever laid awake at night and wondered, will I be lost in the end? If you've ever feared that your name would fade in time, or your worth would vanish with age, let the cross speak to your fear. Let the empty tomb shout over your silence. You will not be forgotten, because he has never stopped remembering you. Maybe it's not just about death. Maybe you're afraid he's already forgetting you now, in this season, in your stillness, in your prayers that seem to fall flat, in the waiting room that feels like it has no exit. You look at others running ahead, being seen, being blessed, and you wonder, has he passed me by? But what if silence isn't forgetting? What if God's quietness is preparation, not absence? What if your name is not lost in the crowd, but held in his hand, waiting for the perfect moment to be spoken? Spurgeon reminds us, the God who raised Jesus from the grave is the same God who watches over your dust. He doesn't just resurrect bodies, he restores timelines. He redeems pauses. He remembers promises, even when we forget to hope for them. Think about Lazarus, 4 days in the tomb, wrapped in grave clothes, smell of death thick in the air. And yet when Jesus finally came, he didn't shout, "Come out, someone." He said, "Lazarus," by name. Direct, precise, personal. That's how he remembers. So when your fear says, "You've waited too long, you've drifted too far, you've disappeared," let his truth answer, "I know your name, I know your pain, and I am not late." He doesn't just remember the strong, he remembers the scattered, the uncertain, the exhausted, the ones who still whisper, "Jesus, don't forget me." And he won't. The God who remembers every fallen sparrow remembers your frailty. The one who numbers stars also numbers scars. You are not a forgotten chapter. You are not a closed file. You are a living story he's still writing. Even if your strength has faded, even if your body feels like it's breaking, even if time has stolen your youth, your role, your voice, you are still his, still seen, still held. And he hasn't stopped remembering, not for 1 second. It's easy to believe God remembers great things, big faith, bold prayers, history-shaking obedience. But what about the small moments, the quiet ones? The days you could barely lift your head but still whispered his name. The nights you wept without words. The weeks that passed with no breakthrough, just breath after breath of quiet faithfulness. Those are not lost, not to him. He's not like us. He doesn't forget the weak moments. He treasures them. He counts them. And he carries them in the palm of his hand. Spurgeon spoke of the resurrection as more than an event. It's a vindication. It's the moment when all that seemed small, forgotten, buried, will rise in glory, not to impress the world but to fulfill a promise. And every believer who felt invisible, unworthy, or too far gone will see that God never turned away. Not once. This changes everything. It changes how you see your past, your pain, your body. Your body may break, but it's not discarded. Your memories may fade, but he remembers. You may lose yourself in grief or aging or confusion, but he does not lose you. You are not fading in his memory. You are fixed in his heart. The enemy wants you to believe you're too broken to be remembered, too far gone, too scattered in the dust. But God speaks to the dust. He shapes worlds from it. He He breathed into it once, and he will breathe again. Your bones may sleep in the earth, but they will not rest forever. When he speaks, even dust becomes destiny. So hold on. You don't need to fight to be remembered. You're already known. You don't have to shout to be seen. He's already near. And when the day comes when graves give way and time folds in on itself, you won't be forgotten in the crowd. You will be called by name, by the one who never stopped loving you, by the one who never let go. In a world that forgets fast, God's memory is your anchor. People change. They move on. They forget promises, miss birthdays, grow distant. But the one who formed you in the secret place has never taken his eyes off you. You were not just a moment in his creation. You were intentional, eternal, and always present in his mind. And even if life has tried to convince you otherwise, his memory hasn't wavered. Spurgeon reminded us that the resurrection is not vague or symbolic. It's literal, personal, detailed. God doesn't simply gather souls in the end. He gathers people, real people, with names, with stories, with bodies that once bled and breathed and broke. He remembers the very ones who the world buried and forgot, and he brings them back, not in weakness but in glory. That means your story doesn't end in obscurity. It won't fade with time. No matter how ordinary or unseen your life may feel, there is a divine record being kept, not for judgment but for restoration. What you've done in secret will not stay hidden forever. The kindness you gave without recognition, the prayers you whispered when no one noticed, the forgiveness you offered when it cost you everything. It's all remembered, and one day it will all be answered with light. Even the dust remembers the sound of his voice. When he calls, creation responds, and that includes you, every part of you. So don't let the silence lie to you. Don't let your circumstances convince you that you've been forgotten. His delay is not abandonment. His silence is not distance. Even when heaven feels quiet, he is watching, holding, counting, remembering. One day your name will be called, not in shame, not in fear, but in perfect love. And everything you feared was lost will rise with you, restored, glorified, fulfilled. Because God does not forget what he's redeemed, and you, beloved, have been bought at the highest price. There's something sacred in knowing that even if the world forgets your name, heaven never will. That even if your grave is unmarked, even if your story seems buried beneath years of silence and dust, God has never stopped remembering. His promises don't expire with time. His love doesn't diminish when life grows quiet. His eye doesn't turn away when your strength does. Spurgeon spoke of the resurrection not just as a theological idea but as an intimate assurance that the same God who knows every star by name knows every scar on your soul, that he doesn't need to search for your remains in the earth. He knows where you are. He knows what you've carried, and he knows how to restore every part of you. This truth rewrites how we see death. It reframes loss. The grave is not the end, it's the threshold. The silence of the tomb is not abandonment, it's a pause before glory. And every tear shed in faith, every hope held in waiting, every ache endured in trust will not be wasted. God remembers it all, and one day he will answer it all. You may look at your life and feel like too many pages have turned, like your impact was small, like your voice barely echoed, but he heard you, in every sigh, in every amen that no one else caught, in every help me you couldn't even say aloud. He heard, he saw, he stored every word, every moment, every movement of your heart. Because that's what it means to be remembered by God. Not just to be kept in thought, but to be held in love, to be promised a future, to be raised again. You don't need the world to remember you when heaven does. You don't need to leave behind monuments when your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. You don't need fame, only faith. You don't need applause, only assurance. He will remember you, not just who you were, but who he created you to be. And when he calls, you will rise not as a stranger, but as his own. Sometimes the fear doesn't sound loud, it's subtle. It whispers through quiet prayers, through empty rooms, through aging skin and tired bones. It says, you've had your time. It says, you're fatting. It says, God's busy with brighter, stronger, more visible people now. And part of you believes it, not because you doubt God's power, but because you wonder if you still matter to him. But what if your quiet season is not disconnection, it's preparation? What if the stillness is the soil where God is preparing resurrection? Spurgeon said it clearly. What goes into the ground is not wasted, it's planted. And what God plants he will raise, not just in spirit but in glory, in fullness, in radiance. There is no expiration date on God's promises. No believer becomes irrelevant. No life becomes too small to be remembered. Whether you've been buried by time, grief, invisibility, or simply the passing of years, God sees. God knows. God remembers. You're not a forgotten prayer. You're not a lost cause. You're not a name on a stone waiting to be weathered down. You are a soul waiting to be called up. And when he calls, it won't be vague. It won't be distant. It will be like Lazarus, specific, personal, undeniable. He will say your name, and your body, wherever it lies, in whatever state it rests, will respond. Because your bones remember his voice, your dust remembers his breath. This is the kind of God we serve, not one who forgets, but one who remembers unto resurrection, one who doesn't just visit graves, he empties them. And one day, when the trumpet sounds and light breaks the silence of every cemetery, your name will echo, not in sadness, but in glory. So if the question still lingers, will he remember me? Let the empty tomb answer you. Let the promises stand taller than your doubts. Let the spirit inside you whisper what your fears cannot silence. He already remembers, and he is not done with you. He formed you before the world began. He watched over you in the womb. He numbered your days, your breaths, your tears. He walked with you through every valley, stood beside you in every battle, and whispered your name in the dark when you thought no one was listening. And when your time on this earth is done, he won't forget you then either. This is the promise of resurrection. God's memory is eternal and his love is active. You are not a name on a list. You are a life he breathed into, a body he will one day restore. You are part of a greater story, a greater hope, a greater future than this world can offer. So when the doubts rise, when the silence stretches, when you fear you've been left behind, remember this: he hasn't forgotten you. Not in your pain, not in your old age, not in your lowest moment, and not in death. He knows where you are. He knows who you are. And when the time is right, he will call you by name in power into glory. You are remembered. And if that truth stirred something inside you today, don't walk away from it. Because maybe this video wasn't just something you stumbled on. Maybe it was the whisper you've been needing, the reminder your soul has been waiting for, the voice of God cutting through your fear with one promise. You are not forgotten. So stay near to him, keep seeking, keep hopping, keep trusting in the one who keeps your name in his heart even when everyone else forgets. If this message spoke to you, don't leave quietly. Subscribe now, not just to hear more content, but to walk deeper into the truth that you are known, loved, and never alone. Together, let's rise in hope. Because he will remember you.